Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto had to make a painful pact with the new Hyuga clan leader Hanabi to marry Hinata, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Deal with the Hyuga clan. Naruto Uzumaki, age 24 and current Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, woke up in bed to the sight of his beautiful wife Hinata Hyuga, now Uzumaki. The two had gotten together after the five nations had brought down the Akatsuki, with Naruto delivering the final blows to Madara and Sasuke Uchiha. After the war each of the nations called for a treaty with one another, the bad blood having disappeared during the 3 years of war, fighting and dying alongside each other. Naruto smiled to himself as he had a hand in changing the minds of the people from the other 4 nations. He was now one of the most well-known and well-respected ninja in the world. He sighed to himself wishing that Jiraiya had been there, the peace established he had wanted. He shook his head to rid himself of those thoughts and turned back to his wife. They had dated for a year before Naruto asked her to marry him. To which she said yes before fainting in his arms. He lay down behind her placing kisses on her neck. Naruto-kun, let me rest a bit more, I'm still tired from last night. Naruto had the decency to blush and just wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. Naruto had found out that because his seal hadn't been completely purifying his Yuki, as he had grown up there had been some unintended side effects. Those side effects had given him his powerful regeneration, and stamina. Hell, he might have well been a super soldier. Tsunade, that fact still embarrassed, also found that this also gave him a very high libido, coupled with his stamina he was like a dog, or fox, in heat most of the time. As a result Hinata was taken by him almost every night, something the woman was glad for as well as cursing it. Naruto liked it rough and she could never deny him, not to mention she liked it that way too. However, he always seemed to be left wanting because she couldn't keep up, but then again who could? This sometimes caused her to worry if he was running around with another woman to get what she couldn't give, but those thoughts were banished when she remembered who she had married. Naruto was the noblest person she or anyone knew. So the two just lay there enjoying one another's presence as they held each other, but Naruto had to get things done, he was the Hokage after all. He headed towards the shower while Hinata enjoyed the view his backside. He never really cared for decency, never having lived with someone, so Hinata had learned to get used to him sometimes walking around the house, which wasn't that hard. Those tight buns are all mine. Naruto came out of the shower to see his wife rising out of bed, no surprise as she had to be at the hospital in another hour or so. She had become the chief medical doctor at the hospital along with Sakura, who was the chief medical ninja officer. She handled all the med-nin training while Hinata became a skilled doctor due to her Byakugan and led the traditional side of the hospital as not everyone was fit to be a ninja. Naruto bent down and kissed his wife, who responded and kissed back. Soon the two were in a heated makeout session. Wanting more, Naruto moved his lips to her weak spot, her neck. Hinata moaned as her husband licked and nibbled all those spots he knew drove her wild. Before they could go further, Naruto looked at the clock. Shit. Sorry honey, have to get to the office. With that, Naruto got off of his wife, dressed, kissed her again and left, saying he'd grab something to eat on his way there. Hinata sighed to herself, content and happy with how her life turned out. She got up and started getting ready, while thinking of her loving husband. Who would have guessed that she would be married to him? Of course she had dreamed but never thought it would happen. Of course there had been some trouble with her sister, who had taken the clan head position after her father died in the war. She said a seal needed to be placed on Hinata to prevent the loss of the Byakugan, but Naruto had taken care of the problem quickly, saying his wife would not be marked in any way except as his. He had talked to Hanabi in private, though she didn't know what was said. It had worked, and she thought it best not look a gift horse in the mouth. If only she knew what had gone on in that meeting, she would have put a stop to the marriage. XXXXXXX. Naruto walked through his village waving to all the people, who waved back happily at the leader. Naruto looked up to the Hokage mountain with that same pride he felt when he first saw his face up there. He finally had his dream of being Hokage and being respected and loved by the villagers. He also had someone he loved to share it with. Thinking about Hinata, a guilty look crossed his face before he covered it up. Couldn't risk running into a friend, God forbid Sakura or Shikamaru. He remembered that day when he made the deal with Hanabi Hyuga to marry his beloved wife. Flashback. Firecracker, I think you know why I'm here, Naruto said, smiling at Hanabi, who glared indignantly at him. You will address me a Hyuga dono, Uzumaki dono, Hanabi said coldly, wanting to get down to business. Naruto just laughed and took a seat. Come on Hanabi-chan, I'm just teasing. I remember when you used to be a little pouty girl. Hanabi blushed at his words, making Naruto laugh. Of course he missed her checking out his body, devious thoughts running through her head as she got ready to set her plan into motion. Keep laughing Naruto-kun, soon I will have you as well, Hanabi thought, a predatory smile on her face. Fine, formalities aside Naruto-kun, I can't let Hinata marry you without that seal. The Hyuga blood must stay within the clan. Of course that was total bullshit, this was all part of Hanabi's plan. I don't want to resort to force, but I won't let that seal be placed upon my wife, Naruto said, his goofy attitude. Hanabi shivered as the Hokage now sat in front of her, exuding that familiar aura of strength and power. She smiled as she put her plan into action. I wish to settle this diplomatically as well, so I propose a deal. What kind of deal, Firecracker? Naruto asked suspiciously, wondering what the 18-year-old sister of his wife wanted. Hinata will not have the seal placed on her as long as you grant me one favor, and it can be anything that I want, and I want you to swear on your nindo that you will carry it out, Hanabi said, flashing him a smile. That smile, it was one he'd seen on a lot of arrogant ninja, the smile of a predator, and it put him edge. That sounds okay, but the favor can't be anything to place the Hyuga clan above the others or for any ridiculous power or laws to be made, Naruto said. His promises were something that he didn't take lightly, and he was about to be the Hokage, second youngest one at 22. Of course, when she looked delighted at his term, he became a bit nervous, wondering what her actual aim was. That is acceptable. Do we have a deal? Hanabi said, making a cut on her hand and sticking it out, the traditional way for Hyuga to finish a deal. Naruto nodded, cutting his own and taking Hanabi's hand and shaking it. Deal. Hanabi then pulled Naruto forward and crushed her lips against his. Naruto was caught off guard, but then grabbed Hanabi by the shoulders and pushed her away. Hanabi-chan, what are you doing? Hanabi smirked. I am calling in my favor. I want you to submit to me whenever I ask from this day forward. Don't worry, I won't interfere in your duties to my sister, but you will be at my beck and call. She leaned in, taking his lips again. We can't do this, Naruto said firmly, pushing her away. You gave me your word, Naruto-kun, Hanabi said, pushing him on his back. Are you going to break your word? Is Hinata going to need that seal? Naruto wanted to, but if he did, Hinata would be given the seal and it would be his fault. Fine, I'll submit to you from this day forward. Good, from now on you call me Hanabi-sama in private. Hanabi lifted up his shirt and began to explore his body. She smiled as she felt his hard muscles. She loved having power, and having the most powerful shinobi under her, pleasing her whims, made her shiver in anticipation. Deciding to make sure he knew who was in charge, she pulled out a black choker with a leather leash attached to it and placed it on his neck, much to his annoyance. Take off the shirt. What? Hanabi pulled on the leash, channeling chakra, causing a seal to shock Naruto. Remember what I said. Now shirt off. Yes, Hanabi-sama. Naruto pulled off his shirt and Hanabi began to rub her hands over his chest, finding his sensitive spots. She smirked when she rubbed her hands against his stomach, eliciting a purr from him. Oh, does my little fox like this? Yes, Hanabi-sama, Naruto said, trying to ignore what Hanabi's soft hands were doing to him. How nice, but you are supposed to please me. With that, Hanabi undid the sash on her kimono and opened, revealing the smooth skin and perky under it. She pulled him forward, not activating the choker, and brought him close to her chest. Now lick. my pet. Yes, Hanabi-sama. Naruto leaned forward and began to lick in her right while his hand played with the other. She gasped and moaned as his tongue licked her and his hand groped and massaged her. She let out a small scream as Naruto bit her and tweaked the other, the pain quickly turning to pleasure. Ah, so good, my pet. Ooh, yes, lick me. Hanabi kept enjoying the attention Naruto was giving her. She could feel the heat between her legs, her growing moist. That's enough, Hanabi said, using the leash to pull him away. She kissed him, roughly dominating him, getting off on how she controlled him. She tossed him on his back and straddled him. Placing herself on his face, facing his legs, she gave an order. Now eat me, she said as Naruto began to lick her folds. Naruto ran his along her, licking and on her puffy aroused lips. Then he moved to her, getting her to scream by gently on it. Hanabi was moaning and screaming as Naruto kept eating her out. Yes, more. Right there. Lick me there. Hanabi's moan kept getting louder as she felt this heat and pressure build. She felt so good. The knot in her began to tighten as Naruto kept started to get into it. Oh god, I'm gonna come, ooh, Hanabi kept panting until she felt her release. I'm coming. Hanabi screamed as her orgasm washed over her while Naruto kept lapping at her, gently sending delicious little shocks through Hanabi as she came down from her orgasm. I think you deserved a reward, my pet. Hanabi got off of him and dragged his pants off. She smirked as his heart stood at attention. My, what a big to think my sister is the only one enjoying this. She placed herself above him and slowly lowered herself. She wanted to thoroughly enjoy her first time. There'd be time for the rough stuff later. Us should be honored. Taking my virginity. Pet. Hanabi winced as she slammed her hip down, breaking her barrier in one movement. Ah. Naruto looked concerned as Hanabi yelped, but the girl stopped as she got used to Naruto's size and girth. Soon the pain dulled and she moaned as enjoyed the feeling of being full. Shame on you, sister, trying to keep this man to yourself. She slowly began to grind against him, enjoying how full she felt. Once she felt comfortable, she lifted herself and then brought her hips down and moaned at the pleasure the friction caused her. She began bouncing on top of Naruto, screaming as she began to feel herself release building up again. She started going faster and harder, panting as Naruto grunted, enjoying her tight virgin. Ah, so good, you're so good, it feels so good, give me more. Complying, he surged against her, hitting that spot that made her scream as the pleasure ripped through her. She enjoyed all of it, the heat of his, how he hit the perfect spot every time and made her see stars. Feeling bold, she decided to do something her sister told her drove him wild. She licked on his neck and then bit him hard. This set him off as he began to pound into her, all semblance of control gone, the pain and the pleasure mixed until she couldn't tell which she was feeling. And then her release tore through her violently, making the stars in her eyes explode as he kept pounding into her. She felt his twitch and she knew what was coming. I'm coming, Hanabi-chan. Yes, inside, do it inside. He'd been trying to hold back to retain some form of fealty to Hinata, but it was too much, she was too much. She was all fire and passion, her shrieks and moan driving him wild as he slammed into her soft slick heat until it was too much. He howled as he drove deep into her, finally letting go. OOOHHGOOOOD. Hanabi fell on his chest as he kept coming, enjoying the feeling of his hot seed inside her. After the both came down, Hanabi raised herself, a satisfied smirk on her face. Remember, you're mine, and as long as you give me what I want, Hinata-chan will never know. At the mention of his fiancé, Naruto realized what he had done. The guilt slammed into his gut. He'd felt like scum. He betrayed her. The girl he loved, the girl who adored, he betrayed her. He honestly considered crawling into a hole until he felt a delicate hand touch his cheek. Now, my pet. Forget about her, we still have more time together. Hanabi moved against him. He hated how her soft body made him rock hard again. She leaned in close to his ear, and I'll make we have lots of fun. Flashback end. XXXXXXX. From that day forward Hanabi and he would meet secretly and he would do as ordered, not wanting Hinata to find out the truth. He knew he had to come clean, the guilt was eating at him and he couldn't keep lying to his wife, but he didn't want see hate fill those eyes that had only ever looked at him with love and adoration. He went into his office and summoned clones to do his work as he wondered what he would do about the situation with Hanabi. It was about noon when his secretary knocked to let him know someone was coming in. Naruto told her to let them in and he sighed to himself as Hanabi herself walked in. "Why hello Hokage-sama, how have you been?" Hanabi said, an innocent smile on her face. "What do you want, firecracker?" Of course he knew but had to wait until the secretary left. As soon as the door closed Hanabi's innocent smile was replaced with a wicked one. She straddled his lap and placed the collar around his neck. "Now is that any way to talk to me?" Hanabi said, channeling chakra into the seal. Naruto winced at the pain. "I am sorry Hanabi-sama." Of course all he wanted to do was slam her against the wall and show her who the submissive one really was. 2 years being someone's toy and you wanted revenge. Good, now today we will be going to your home. Hanabi smiled at Naruto's reaction. "Now don't be so mad. We're going and I'm going to have my wicked little way with you on the bed you and my sister share." To make her point clear she pulled the leash, activated the seal, causing him greater pain. "Let's go." "Why yes Hanabi-sama," Naruto said as he picked her up and teleported to his home. XXXXXXX. Namikaze home. They arrived in Naruto's room and Hanabi pushed him onto the bed and climbed him on top of him, nibbling on his neck and tearing his clothes off. "My, what a naughty pet, having another woman in your bed, and your wife's sister no less." Naruto soon lost his clothes and was left in his boxers. She pulled him out of his boxers and began massage and stroke him. Not stopping there, she licked his sensitive head, making him moan, and teased his balls with her tongue. Deciding she'd had her fun, she wrapped her mouth around his. Naruto grunted as she took him into her mouth, her tongue licking while her throat massaged him. God, she's gotten good at this, Naruto thought as her head started bob up and down, bringing him closer to release. Releasing him from her mouth with a slight pop, she started licking his sack while pumping his shaft, her soft hands doing wonderful things to him. Naruto could feel himself close to the edge, but then Hanabi stopped. "Ah, why did you stop?" "Ah, was my pet close to coming," she said with an innocent face while stroking him to keep him on the edge. "Do you want to cum? Let out all that tasty cum in my little mouth." "Yes, Hanabi-sama." She was driving him insane, keeping as his hips moved on their own. "Then I want you to say that you love me and not Hinata," Hanabi said, an evil smile on her face. However, Naruto would never say that. He loved his wife, despite his betrayal. "No Hanabi, this has gone on long enough." Naruto got up, shoving Hanabi off, and began to pick up his clothes, but was pushed down by Hanabi, who grabbed the collar and activated it. What the two were unaware of was that they had a set of eyes watching them. XXXXXXX. Hinata hummed to herself as she prepared some lunch for husband. She would surprise him by dropping in. As she was getting ready to leave, she felt a presence in her room. Realizing it was Naruto, she headed to see what was wrong. As she reached the top, she began to hear grunts, and fearing that he might be hurt, she hurried. When she reached for the knob, she heard Naruto speak. "Why did you stop?" She cracked open the door and saw an image that broke her heart, her husband in there with her sister, her hand wrapped around his. As the spoke, her heartbreak was soon replaced with rage, as she prepared to barge in when Hanabi's voice stopped her. "Then I want you to say that you love me and not Hinata," Hanabi said, an evil smile on her face, and Hinata's breath caught in her throat. "No Hanabi, this has gone on long enough." Naruto got up, shoving Hanabi off of him to put his close one, but was pushed down by Hanabi, who grabbed the collar and activated it. Hinata saw Naruto wince in pain and the snarl on Hanabi's face. "You gave your word that you would submit to me, or do you want me to put the seal on Hinata?" Hanabi shouted furiously. "You won't be putting the S seal on her, but I won't do this anymore. I love Hinata," Hinata cried as she realized what had been going on. Her husband had been protecting her from her own sister. She was furious that her sister would do something like this to her husband, even going so far to trap him in one of his promises that she knew he would never break. While most people would think that Naruto should be punished as well, she did not. Hinata was very devoted to her husband, she would give everything up for him if he asked. While she should have therapy for this, no one had ever noticed because it had not caused problems, but back to the action. XXXXXXX. Oh Naruto-kun, don't make this so hard, I have your body now, give me your heart, Hanabi said as she kissed Naruto on the cheek and his lips. I love you, but sister took you before I could, so I did all this to have you. Naruto was shocked at hearing why she did all this. Let it be said the Hyuga sisters were crazy. I'm sorry, but I love Hinata, Naruto said, trying to hold back his scream as she increased power to the seal. That's okay my love, I'll just have to resort to more drastic measure to make you realize you love me, Hanabi said as she saddled him and took his lips again. Before she could, however, the door slammed open and Hinata rushed in. Hanabi was so shocked that she was caught off guard when Hinata disabled her with Juken strikes. Hinata then held Naruto to her chest as she glared at her sister, Hinata-chan. She looked at her, loved and kissed him. Naruto-kun, you fool, you didn't have to do this. Heh, I'm sorry, he said, giving her the foxy smile of his. Letting go of him, she moved to her sister, who was glaring at her with tears in her eyes. As for you sister, I won't be so easy on you, how dare you try to take what is mine, Hinata said, slapping her. Hanabi just glared at her. You don't deserve him, he's mine sister and I will have him. Hanabi stood up facing her sister, having unsealed the chakra points that had been blocked. Both girls seemed ready to fight to the death, so Naruto intervened. He got between them, wrapped his arms around them, brought them close and cupped there. I think you girls are confused, you are both mine. Both girls looked at him, and then he kissed Hinata and placed the collar around Hanabi. Breaking away from Hinata, he pulled the leash, bringing Hanabi in for a kiss. Now I think I owe you 2 years of payback, he said with a feral grin. He ripped of her kimono, making her yelp as he threw her on the bed. Hinata get, and lay on the pillows. Hinata did as she was told, always wanting to please Naruto. Naruto lifted Hanabi onto her knees, then forced her head into Hinata's crotch. Now lick, my pet, Naruto said, using her name for him. Hanabi did as she was told and began to eat her sister out. She blushed in shame at what she was being forced to do, while Naruto began to rub her. She moaned, blushing even more at how much this aroused her. Oh my, does Hanabi-chan like licking her sister? How shameful, Naruto whispered into her ear, arousing her further. Naruto then got behind her, rubbing himself along her, making her moan loudly. He placed himself at her entrance before thrusting in hard. Hanabi arched her back and moaned as he filled her, only to be pushed back down by Naruto. Hinata was enjoying her sister's tongue as it licked her folds, and she placed her hand on her sister's head and pushed her deeper. Sister, you're gonna make me come, Hinata said as her sister shoved her tongue into her. Then Hanabi started to lick her while pumping her finger into her sister. Hinata kept panting and moaning, saying how good it felt, telling her sister to go faster. Oh God, oh God, oh God, Hinata kept repeating as she began to feel her orgasm approaching. Naruto was pounding into Hanabi, slowly making the moan and push against him to get more pleasure. However, every time she did, Naruto slapped her ass, causing her to yell. He saw the pleasure on his wife's face and could tell she was close. Sister, I'm coming. Hanabi lapped up her sister juices, making the heat in her loins burn hotter. This was wrong and shameful, but she couldn't help herself. She liked to be treated like this, she liked being his toy. Naruto kept thrusting into her a slow, agonizing pace, promising no release for her. Her bum was red from the Naruto's abuse to it. Please Naruto-sama, I want it. Complying, Naruto began to speed up his thrust, groping and rubbing her, abused her bum. Yes, Naruto-sama, so good, harder, faster, come inside me, make me yours, Hanabi said, screaming as Naruto picked up his pace. A naughty thought entered his head as he pulled Hanabi to his chest. Then he put his arms under his legs and lifted her off the bed, making the girl scream. Look, Hinata. Hanabi is showing her how shameful. Hanabi tried to cover herself, but Hinata moved her arms. No, sister, please don't look at me. Hinata began to lick Hanabi's slit and deciding she liked the taste dug in. With Naruto pounding into her and Hinata licking her, Hanabi felt her brain fry as the delicious shocks rocked her body, overloading her body with painful ecstasy. She moaned as her walls tightened and she squirted on her sister's face. Naruto laid the trembling girl down, little whimpers falling from her mouth as he set his sights on Hinata. He wasted no time as he laid her on the bed and thrust into her roughly. Hinata moaned as her husband her hard and got louder when he began to licking on her. Harder, faster, love, give me your cum, Hinata said, moaning wantonly as Naruto kept thrusting into her. She loved this, loved when treated her like his personal toy, the way he would just take her like an animal, making her his irrefutably. She could feel him move faster and knew he was close. She wrapped her arm as around his neck and her legs around his hip and him back. Soon the both reached their peak and her heart sang. She felt the lovely heat fill her. As Hinata was coming down, she noticed her husband was not slowing down. Naruto, let me rest, please, you'll break me. Naruto's response was to go harder and faster. Hinata screamed as she felt another orgasm coming. Oh God, coming, ah. Naruto, I'm coming. Hinata's walls tightened around him and it became too much as he came inside her. Hinata, Naruto shouted. He pumped his seed into her. They panted as he slipped out of Hinata and Naruto laid on the bed, his already becoming hard again. Naruto-kun, you're going to kill me, Hinata said as she turned to her husband's body and began to give him a hand job. Naruto moaned as his wife's hand pumped his shaft and was joined by another. Don't worry, sister, I'll help you with Naruto-sama. Hanabi would realize with what she was dealing with. XXXXXXX. Oh God, no more Naruto-sama. I am going to break, Hanabi said as Naruto her against the wall. She felt her walls tighten, making him come as well. Hanabi, Naruto said as he came inside of her. He held her against the wall as the girl could not support her weight. Naruto gently lifted her to the bed where Hinata was already asleep, exhausted from her time with Naruto. Laying her down, Naruto placed himself between both women and wrapped his arms around them. God, it's good to be me. Most people who knew Naruto Uzumaki thought he was a good luck charm. He just seemed to be born with an ungodly amount of the stuff. Most casinos had banned him from their places of business when rumor of his winning streaks spread around. He'd never considered it odd himself, not up until now, because when he looked down and saw both Hyuga princesses in his bed, he realized that he was really damn lucky. He smiled down at them, glad this whole business with Hanabi was over. Cheating on Hinata was killing him. Then he smiled wider when he remembered how understanding his lovely wife was. A few lecherous chuckles escaped from his mouth as he recalled the other half of that night. Looking out the window, he thought back to his honeymoon night where he had realized the gravity of his situation and new and interesting things about his wife. XXXXXXX. Naruto sighed as he watched the tree branches rustle from the window of his cart. He told Shikamaru repeatedly that he didn't want any Anbu guarding him. He briefly entertained the thought of ripping Shikamaru a new one when he got back, but Shikamaru's explanation would be so good he'd just end up agreeing. But that didn't matter much, not when he looked down at his new wife nestled against him, her head resting on his shoulder, the kimono she'd changed into hugging her in all the right places. The wedding had been a whole giant affair. Surprisingly, he wanted this large wedding. He was Naruto Uzumaki and marrying the woman he loved. He wanted everyone he knew there to celebrate with him. It was good party too, filled with lots of laughter and dancing and plenty of booze. Soon they arrived at the resort just as the sun set, checked in and collapsed on the bed. Man, that was exhausting. They kicked off their shoes and cuddled up to each other, glad to be able to rest after having to entertain everyone all night. Hinata looked up to him, a small smile on face. What? I'm Mrs. Uzumaki. Hinata giggled as she nuzzled into Naruto's chest. It's about time. Naruto laughed as he held her close. Sorry, your husband's kind of dense. She liked the sound of that. Her husband, she was all his, but here we are. Yes, here we are, Hinata said softly as she straddled him, and I know you've been waiting a long time. Naruto blushed as he realized what she was referring to. They never gone all the way when they had been dating because Hinata didn't want to, but now I'm all yours. The kiss started out gentle but soon became heated. Her hands found their way under his shirt and rubbed his stomach just the way he liked it, Hinata. The way he said her name, the way she liked it, deep and husky and full of want. She straddled him and she tugged his shirt off and began to lay little love bites on his neck. He kept his own hands busy by pulling the kimono open, releasing her beautiful. He cupped and massaged one and then both, rubbing and pinching her, Naruto. He rolled them over and completely unwrapped his prize. Naruto held her hands above her head, enjoying the way her skin became flushed out of embarrassment, her head turning to the side. He lavished her with attention, nibbling in on one while his hand roughly fondled the other. Hinata's free hand made its way down and palmed his, making him shiver as her warm hand began to stroke and tease him, Hinata. Returning the favor, his hand began to tease her folds. When she was nice and wet, he slipped 2 fingers massaging her walls while his thumb rubbed her. Hinata moaned as she felt herself grow wet, her body growing harder as she felt his twitch in her hands. Soon he couldn't hold himself back anymore and started grinding his against her slick. Then he slowly began to enter her, enjoying the way she felt so hot and moist, how she shivered and clung to him tightly with her little whimpers and moans, so good, please go deeper. Naruto lost it when he heard her beg, thrusting deep into her. She moaned loudly as the pleasure spread from her core to the rest of body. She wrapped her legs around in his waist, pulling him deeper, wanting him, needing him to her harder. Why had she waited so long for this? Asked for chastity when this delicious carnal pleasure was hers whenever she's wanted. She gave a yelp as he turned his focus to her and licking, making her head loll back and her arms wrap around his head, her body not used to this kind of stimulation. Naruto. He seemed to get harder inside of her, if that was even possible, and he slammed into her while she held one as he her good and hard. This wasn't the romantic first time she'd read about in her little books that she hid under her bed, the one that was gentle and soft. No, this was her and her husband making love, hot, dirty, and passionate love. She moaned as his rubbed against a special spot and screamed when he kept hitting it just right. Naruto, 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 Naruto. His name became a mantra on her lips as she forgot the rest of the world and focused on the delicious heat she could feel building inside her. Soon she was on the edge, so close to that wonderful release. Hinata, I'm about to come. She felt him spill his hot cum inside her, the sensation sending him over as he kept thrusting into her like an animal until he was spent. They lay there in sweat, mess of entangled limbs, panting as they held one another and enjoyed the feeling of the other's body. Eventually Naruto rolled off her and pulled her into his side, running his hand up and down her body, caressing her. Was her reply, not really wanting to say anything. The thought of washing up did come to mind, but she was spent and her body felt too comfortable to feel like doing anything. Soon she felt her eyes become heavy and shortly after fell asleep, Naruto following her lead as he enjoyed her warmth. What they and their escort couldn't notice was a pair of eyes watching the couple through the wall. Hanabi moaned into her mattress as she came, her body squirming and shaking on the mattress. She gave her one last rub, shivering at the little aftershocks as pulled the sheet over her body. Sorry sister, Hanabi said to herself, licking her fingers clean, you're not the only one having fun this honeymoon. The sun rose over the horizon and eventually the light hit his face, which gave him his first thought of the day. Oh son, you are cruel bitch. He rolled over and nestled into the warm body of his new wife, glad that he wouldn't have to attend to any of his responsibilities for good long while. Naruto wrapped an arm around his wife and groped one of her. Oh, you make everything better. Naruto-kun. Hinata turned over and smiled at him. He returned her smile and kissed her on the forehead. So Hinata-chan, an idea is how we can make our first morning together special. Hinata blushed as she thought about whether or not to tell Naruto about one of her fantasies. After a quick tournament of pros versus cons ping pong, she finally gathered the courage to tell him, well, I did have this thing in mind. Really? Naruto could feel blood rushing to certain places as he saw the blush on her face. Well, don't keep me in suspense. Too embarrassed to voice it out loud, Hinata whispered it into his ear. Naruto sported his own blush as he heard what she wanted. Really? Hinata nodded meekly. All right. Hinata walked over to her bangs and dug around until she found what she wanted. Walking back to the bed, she hands Naruto a long piece of cloth and brought her hands forward. Naruto tied her hands nice and tight behind her back, then pulled her onto his lap facing him. Is this what you want, Hinata-chan? She gasped as he fisted her hair as the pain began to turn her on. Is this what you like? Yes, she moaned as his hands groped her roughly. Please punish me, Naruto. Smack. Hokage-sama. Naruto chastened as he groped her ass roughly. You don't give me orders. He smacked her ass again, earning another yelp. You're supposed to say thank you. Smack. Thank you, Hokage-sama. The sharp sting felt good and she could feel herself getting wet. She moaned when Naruto gave her a quick rub. Please, Hokage-sama. Did you like that? He said huskily into her ear as rubbed her ass cheek, the warm hand softening the sting in her backside. Yes, Naru. Smack. Hokage-sama. Hinata moaned as she felt that delicious sting again. Yes, Hokage-sama, I like it. Do you want me to rub that dirty little some more? She nodded as his warm hand massaged her abused cheek again. Smack. Answer the question. Hinata felt the heat of his as he grew hard under her. Her ached for him bury it inside her. She whimpered as he smacked her ass again, the sensation making her even hornier. Answer the question, Hinata-chan. She wished her hands were free so she could reach down and give her aching rub. Instead, she began to kiss Naruto's neck, grind against his, hoping he gave her what she wanted. Hokage-sama, me please. Smack. She whimpered as Naruto pulled her away by her hair, hissing at the delightful way the pain made her hotter. That wouldn't be much of a punishment, Hinata-chan. Naruto pulled her to her feet and then laid her across his lap. She blushed deeply as her bare ass swayed in the air. This is embarrassing, Hokage-sama. She moaned as his fingers slipped into her snatched. Really, you seem to be enjoying it. No, Smack. Don't lie to me, Naruto said as he smacked her ass again. I don't like girls who aren't honest. Smack. And girls who aren't obedient. Smack. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. Hinata yelped as he kept smacking her ass. Forgive me. I will after I've smacked this disobedient little ass some more, and remember, I'm taking time to do this, so thank me. Smack. Thank you. 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 Smack. I love you. She whimpered as when his large hand came down gently and rubbed her abused ass and squirmed when he fingered her gently. Hokage-sama, she moaned as he began to go faster, the bringing her closer to that release she needed. Yes, yes, don't stop. I'm almost there. Ooh, God. And then he pulled her fingers away when she was so close. No, Hokage-sama, please, I'm so close, I need to come. Naruto smirked as he pulled her off his lap and forced her to knees in front of him. I can't let you have fun until you finish the last part of your punishment. He spread his knees apart and presented his throbbing. She didn't need to be told anything as she began to lick her tongue, working his shaft, getting it nice and slick. Hinata heard the sharp intake of breath when she started to lick his balls and loved the way he moaned when she moved up and took him into her mouth. As she and licked, he began to jerk into her mouth, unable to hold himself back. He moaned as he looked down at her, incredibly aroused by the way she stared at him. I'm going your mouth. Hinata's eyes widened as Naruto held her head and began to her tight little mouth. She didn't know why this fantasy had always turned her on. Thoughts of being used like a toy by the man she loved had always made her hot, and now that it was real, she could feel her juices running down her thighs. I'm coming. Her eyes widened as she felt his hot load filled her mouth. Remember a similar situation in her fantasy. She swallowed his cum, enjoying the salty tang on her tongue. Naruto panted as he pulled her away, spent and happy. I think it's time for your reward. She couldn't believe how excited she got when he said that, or the way her ached when tossed her onto the bed and pulled her to her knees. You love this, don't you? Yes. She squirmed when he rubbed his against her slit, lubing himself up. You want my inside, you pounding your. Don't you? Yes. The word left her mouth in an airy moan. Say it. I want your to pound my. Exclamation mark quote. She moaned when he entered her in one deep stroke. Please, gasps and moans fell from her mouth as Naruto her. It felt so good this way, his felt so hot inside her, and the way it rubbed against her was complete ecstasy. It wasn't just his that was bringing her to the edge, at the way he dominated her, his hands digging almost painfully into her hips, his thrusts fast and rough, her like she some wanton whore. This wasn't their lovemaking, it was Naruto getting off, and if she happened to come, that was just a bonus. Naruto. Then it happened, his hit in just the right way and threw her over the edge, pulling him over with her. Her walls tightened around, milking him for all he was worth, and he didn't disappoint. He gave one last, oh shit, and grunted as he came hard. Hinata gave a satisfied moan as Naruto pulled out of her slowly, his cum slowly leaking out of her as she toppled to her side. He took a few exhausted breaths and then he untied her, rubbing the places where the cloth had dug in too deeply. He lay down next to her, a satisfied smirk on his lips. That's what you wanted, right? Hinata, suddenly regaining her shy demeanor, blushed and cuddled up to him, hiding her face. Nah, Naruto-kun. Naruto laughed as he wrapped arm around her and rolled on his back. Life was good. XXXXXXX. Life. How bad does it look? Hinata and the manager cringed as they took in the red and blotchy skin. Sir, I apologize for what happened. If there is anything I or the hotel could do. Naruto waved his hand to stop the nervous woman's chatter, partly caused by a general sense of guilt and the other part caused by the masked and armed Anbu guards that surrounded them. It's fine, you didn't know I'd be allergic to the oil. You're making the poor woman nervous. Dismissed. The guards disappeared into thin air while Hinata sat next to her husband. Oh, poor baby. Naruto winced as she patted his shoulder. He looked down at his arm, watching as the red irritated slowly began to heal. Thanks to the fox, the rest of our trip isn't ruined, but I don't think I'll be able to enjoy the spa, but that doesn't mean that you can't. Oh no, Naruto, Hey, don't worry, honey. Listen, go and enjoy the rest of the spa, and I'm sure the Rico here can help me find something for us to do later. After that, it had taken some prodding for Hinata to go and enjoy the rest of her treatment, while Rico suggested some activities that couples enjoyed on their honeymoons. Now he was wandering around the hotel wondering what he could do to kill time. Maybe I should go down to the woe. Naruto's reflexes kicked into high gear as grabbed the arm that pulled him into the supply closet and with practiced ease twisted the offending arm behind his assailant's back and slammed them against the door. Who the hell say firecracker? I told you not to call me that. Hanabi spat as she craned her neck enough to glare at him. Now get off me. Naruto was briefly amazed that she could act so indignant when she was the one that pulled him into the closet. He chuckled as he let her go, amused and a little annoyed by her antics. He wouldn't say it out loud, but he always found it cute when she pouted. What are you doing here, firecracker? The smirk and sway in her hips immediately killed his amusement, and when Hanabi wrapped her arms around his neck, he knew where this was headed. Firecracker, I'm going to give you a chance to think about what you're doing and stop. Don't call me that, Hanabi muttered as she slipped a hand under his shirt, rubbing his sensitive stomach. You know what to call me, she said teasingly as her teeth began to nibble on his neck. She wasn't ready for the rough hands slamming her against the door, knocking the wind out of her. I am on my honeymoon with my wife. You didn't seem to mind when she was your fiancé. That was low, but it was true. Hinata had always loved him and he betrayed her with her sister no less. He bowed his head in shame, a long sad sigh falling from his mouth. You're right, I didn't, but we're not doing that anymore. I did it to protect her, but that's no excuse, but I do have a choice. With that, Hanabi found herself pushed aside, and as Naruto moved to leave, she grabbed his sleeve. If you do this, Hinata won't be safe. She kept the desperation from her voice, but she hated the lump that formed in the back of her throat at the thought of losing this. It wasn't the relationship she wanted. Who would want to be the other woman? But she couldn't stay away. She tried to move on to leave those thoughts behind, but he was a whirlpool pulling her in and dragging her on no matter how hard she struggled against the current. Her only warning was a small tingle running down her spine before she found herself pressed against a shelf with a vicious hold on her neck. Malevolent red eyes looked into her own as she felt it getting harder to breathe. This was that same dark side she'd seen during the war, the side she could relate, the one she wanted love and tame. Don't you ever threaten my wife. He gave one last hard squeeze to punctuate his point before leaving the room with an angry slam of the door. Hanabi slowly sunk to the floor, rubbing her throat, a determined smile on her face. I can't escape you, Naruto, and I won't let you escape me. Naruto strode through the Hyuga compound, the look on his face telling everyone to get out of his way. The two guards who stood in front Hanabi's office immediately bowed their head and opened the door. The last thing they heard before they shut the door was a very angry, "What? Hokage-sama, is that any way to greet your sister?" Hanabi asked calmly as she poured tea into 2 cups. Naruto scoffed in response as he sat across her. Last time you called me in here, nothing good happened. Now Naruto-kun, we both know that's not true, Hanabi replied as she walked over to his side of the table, placing his tea in front of him, leaning down enough to give Naruto a good eyeful. Naruto just ignored her and took a sip of her tea. What do you want, Hanabi? Hanabi chuckled as she draped herself across his frame. I want to know what you intend to do about our deal. Naruto looked down, the guilt still fresh in his mind. I'm not doing that again. Hanabi smiled gently as she took his chin in her hand and made him look at her. Then you know what I have to do. Naruto snarled as he grasped her wrist painfully and came nose to nose with her, a vicious fire in his eyes. If you lay a hand on her, you'll do what? Kill her kinsman, her sister. Will you be able to face her after that? Will she forgive you? Hanabi felt a little shame in using these tactics against him, but love and lust do strange things to the heart and mind. Still, she wasn't without mercy. She sighed, realizing what she'd have to do, but I won't let it come to that. Naruto, unsure of what she meant, motioned for her to elaborate. You keep your oath to me. She placed a finger over his lips to stop any outburst, and I won't ask for that. Seeing the suspicious gaze he cast on her, Hanabi decided a show of honesty would be the best way to convince him. We served in the war side by side. We are friends despite your feelings towards me, and I had hoped for this little event to become something more, but I can see the hate festering in your eyes, so I'd rather keep you as a friend than lose you entirely. Seeing the tears building in her eyes, Naruto moved to comfort her, but Hanabi held a hand up, turning her head away. Please don't. Meet with me at our usual spot tomorrow. Knowing that anything he did other than follow those instructions would only hurt Hanabi's pride, Naruto stood up and headed for the door. Just as he was about to open it, he paused and murmured a small thank you and then left. Hanabi took a moment to gather herself, still surprised how deeply he could get under her skin, and then called for her personal servant, Suki-san. Yes, Hanabi-sama. A young brown-haired woman appeared beside Hanabi as she sipped her tea. What do you require of me? Any previous trace of the heartbroken young woman was gone, replaced by a cunning kunoichi. I believe Naruto's secretary Ayano-san is secretly engaged to a young man from the branch family. Hoshi-san, isn't it? Yes, my lady. Well, I believe it's time I taught them that nothing escapes my gaze. Please fetch them for me. Hanabi gazed out the window, thinking about the entire situation. A part of her feeling guilty about the knife she was driving into her sister's back when all Hinata had ever done was support her, but Hanabi had never been one to be deterred. I'm sorry, sister, but I'm a selfish woman. XXXXXXX. Hanabi drummed her fingers against the table as she waited for Hinata to arrive for their weekly get-together. It had become a ritual of theirs since Hanabi had laid out the new terms for her deal with Naruto. Thinking of her blue-eyed love caused her heart to swell in joy at how things turned out in the past weeks. While she'd wished for more intimate meetings, halting her advances had caused their friendship to grow stronger than it had been during the war, and they had become closer as a result. Hanabi-chan, I'm sorry for making you wait. Hinata's disheveled appearance was also another reason for her happiness. Both Naruto and Hinata had confided in her that their responsibilities had been keeping them busy. It seemed that the Hokage was being pulled away from his home at all hours of the night when he wasn't in his office running the village. Fortunately, he had more than enough energy to handle whatever came his way. Hinata's problem, however, wasn't time, it was running a hospital. Day in and day out of meetings, rounds, and surgeries left her exhausted at the end of the day. Of course, that didn't keep them from one another, but quickies during lunch and time together interrupted at home was no relationship, let alone a marriage. It's alright, sister, I understand how hectic your schedule can be. I ordered for both, as if that's alright. Oh yes, thank you, Hinata said as she straightened herself out while Hanabi flagged down a waiter for her sister. After she ordered something to drink, Hinata turned back to her sister. So Hanabi-chan, how are you? Did you manage to settle that matter with the elders? Of course, Hinata-ne-chan. I convinced those sacks of leather that trying to force me into a marriage for the good of the clan wasn't in their best interests. Hinata giggled, knowing how her sister tended to handle people who tried to tell her what to do. I take it they've stopped pestering you. It was that or the alternative, Hanabi replied with a smirk that turned to a frown when she saw the concerned look on his sister's face. What's wrong? Don't take this wrong way, but I sort of agree with the elders. What? Not about the forced marriage, but actually finding someone. Hinata took a second to gather her thought as she noticed the more than peeved glance Hanabi was sending her way. I know that the duties of a clan head are stressful, and facing them alone is even worse. Perhaps it is time you found someone. Hanabi simply waved her off as the waiters came with their food. I already have my eye on someone, sister. Oh really? Is it Konohamaru-kun? Hanabi winced as she recalled that particular romance. Of course, romance was probably too strong a word. Distraught over losing her chance with Naruto, she had taken some time along with some advice and had decided to find someone else. Konohamaru had been that someone else. He was kind, funny, loyal, and strong, but despite all those qualities, he wasn't the someone for her. Deciding that it would be too cruel of her to string the poor man along when her heart bore someone else's name, Hanabi called things off. Of course, even acts of mercy aren't always painless, and the distraught, heartbroken mess Konohamaru was afterwards was proof of that. No, I'm the one who called that off, and besides, Konohamaru-san is happy with Moegi-chan. Hanabi replied, genuine happily. Konohamaru had found someone to mend his broken heart. It's someone else. Oh, is it someone I know? Yes, but I think I'll keep it a secret until I'm sure of my feelings for him. Hinata pouted at her tight-lipped sister, hoping to get some juicy details. Speaking of special someones, how are things with you, Naruto-kun, going? Oh, they're fine. The keen look that Hinata received from Hanabi at what even she could admit was a rather lackadaisical reply caused a rather depressed sigh to make its way out. Actually no, things haven't been as fine as I'd like them to be. Really, what's wrong? Hanabi kept the smile from her face as she decided to put her plan into action. You can tell me what's wrong. It's nothing, but well, I just wish we could spend more time together. Hinata stared dejectedly, poking at her food, but the Hokage is always being called out for every little emergency, and on the nights we do get to spend together I'm exhausted, so we haven't gone out since our honeymoon, and it's also caused a lack of bedroom time. Hinata blushed out of embarrassment for admitting their problem and doing so in public. Hanabi, on the other hand, was ecstatic to see things coming together so neatly for her. Well, is he leaving the house at all hours of the night? Hanabi asked, to which Hinata nodded. Perhaps he's finding someone else to share his bedroom. I'm sorry, I'm grown woman, someone else to have with. Hanabi. Hinata was completely shocked by her sister's accusation. Naruto-kun isn't the type of man to do that sort of thing. Well, perhaps he wasn't, but even good men can't resist greener pastures for very long. Unwilling to have vicious accusations thrown at her husband, Hinata angrily shot to her feet. Gaining the attention of the other patrons, How dare you, I can't believe you would accuse him of that. Hinata-ne-chan, please, I just don't want to see you. Don't even bother, Hanabi-chan. Hinata stormed off, throwing an angry shout over her shoulder, and I don't want to see you until you're ready to apologize. Well, I could have done without the drama, Hanabi said to herself as she paid for the food and left the restaurant. Heading over to her favorite park, Hanabi took a seat enjoying the view. The park looked especially beautiful today, the sun beating gently down on her and the breeze carrying the scent of the flowers. The birds seemed lively as well, almost as if nature herself was cheering her on. What a lovely day. Suki-san. Yes, Hanabi-sama. Suki flew from the shadows and bowed low before her master. What do you require of me? Follow Hinata-ne-chan. If she heads to the Hokage's office, please inform Ayano-san that it's time to earn my blessing and her fiancé's freedom, Hanabi said nonchalantly. Of course, milady. Taking her leave, Suki went to carry out her orders, leaving Hanabi to go over plans. Nothing could go wrong, or she might lose more than Naruto. XXXXXXX. By the time Hinata had reached her husband's office, Suki had already come and gone, giving Ayano specific orders on what she had to do if she wanted to see her fiancé again. So when Hinata opened the door to the office, she saw exactly what Hanabi had wanted her to see, and that was her husband and his secretary sprawled on the couch in a very compromising position. What is this? Naruto immediately untangled himself from his secretary, realizing how this looked. Hinata, this isn't what it looks like. Hinata didn't even wait to hear his explanation before rushing out of the office, tears welling in her eyes. Hinata. Damn it. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, Ayano said apologetically, bowing her head. Don't worry, Ayano-san, it's not your fault, Naruto said, flashing her a reassuring smile as he went after his wife, but then he popped his head back in the doorway. But in the future, if you feel sick, please stay at home. Of course, Hokage-sama. Soon after, Suki appeared before Ayano. It's done. Good, Hoshi-san will be freed soon, and Hanabi-sama will never bother the two of you again. XXXXXXX. Hinata heard the door open, but she remained on the couch waiting for him. Hinata, whatever you think happened didn't happen. Then what is going on, Naruto? Hinata didn't want to believe that what she thought was going was actually happening, because it definitely looked like you were about to fool around with your secretary. She was sick. She fell on top of me, that's all it was. She could tell he wasn't lying. Her Byakugan made sure of that. But that wasn't the only thing bothering her. Do you believe me? Yes. Hinata sighed as she deactivated her Byakugan. I do, but that isn't the only problem. What do you mean? Naruto, we barely spend any time together, and most nights when we should be together you always leave to take care of something. The village can't be in danger that often. By the end, the frustration she'd been feeling came out. Naruto sighed, feeling a fight about to start. Hinata, we've been over this. I can't just ignore anything that might be a threat to the village. I've got responsibilities now. I work at the hospital. People come in injured at all hours of the day, but I always make sure to leave some time for us. Why can't you do the same for me? There are other doctors that can handle your duties when you're not there. There's only one Hokage, Naruto shot back. Naruto-kun, at some point you have to set your priorities. I know that your responsibilities are important, but aren't I important as well? How do you think I feel when you leave in the middle of the night, or when I wake up in the morning and you're not there? Hinata-chan, you're important to me, but it's not just your life I have to worry about, it's the whole village. I'm not asking for all of you, but you are my husband. And as your husband, I'm asking for some understanding. Naruto ran a hand through his hair, exasperated with the whole situation. Understanding? You think I don't understand? It was clear that Hinata resented what he'd just said. Of course I understand, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. In fact, I hate it. I hate that when it comes to choosing the village or me, I always lose. Hinata. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. Anything else he said would have just been to placate her, but her anger had been slowly building over the weeks. Hinata gathered her things and gave Naruto a curt reply. It seems my lunch is over. If you want to discuss this, you should make some time. Naruto sat there knowing that neither of them was in the best shape to talk it out, so he let her go. Slam. Naruto's head landed in his hands as he considered going somewhere and blowing off steam but realized that he had to get back to the office. Damn it. XXXXXXX. Naruto yawned as he rejected another proposal that crossed his desk. Without a Yano here, his workload had been a bit heavier. Taking a look at the clock, he was surprised how late it actually was. Hinata's probably home by now. That was something he definitely didn't want to hurry home to. Knock knock. Come in. Naruto rejected another proposal as his visitor came in. Oh, Hanabi-chan, what are doing here? Did you forget? Hanabi asked with a small laugh. I'm here to discuss the cost for the farming land on the outskirts of the village. Oh right, Naruto said as he massaged his temples. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted right now. Really, what's wrong? Hanabi asked as she took a seat across from him. Troubles with work? No, Hinata and I got into a fight, Naruto said as he set down the files. She's angry that I don't spend enough time, and she's probably right, but the village is still healing from the 4th Shinobi War. The moments we get will have to be enough for a while. I agree with you. The duties of a leader have to come first, but if you can take a few moments for her, she should make them count, Hanabi said as her eyes bore into his. After all, those special moments with the one you love should be treasured. Noticing the look Hanabi was giving him, Naruto decided it might be best to go home, but as he stood up he winced as a sharp pain stung his back. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Yeah, but being hunched over this desk all day isn't good for my back. Hanabi shook her head as she strode over to his side of the table and placed her hands on his back. Hanabi-chan, what are you doing? Just giving you back rub. Feeling him tense up under her hands, Hanabi just laughed. Naruto-kun, it's alright, I understand how things are, so please relax. Giving her the benefit of the doubt, Naruto took a deep breath and did just that. Grunting softly as Hanabi kneaded the sore muscles in his back. Does that feel better? Oh yeah, much better. Naruto could feel the stress of the day melting away with the pain in his shoulders, which is why he didn't notice Hanabi pulling out a small syringe, never intending to keep her promise. When she was sure Naruto was completely relaxed, Hanabi gave him a quick prick and then hid the needle. Ow. What the hell was that? Sorry Naruto-kun, my fingernails are a little sharp. Hanabi lied easily and waited for her little surprise to take effect. Do you want me to stop? No, just be a bit more careful. Naruto replied gently as he tugged at his pants inconspicuously, hoping to hide the reaction he was to Hanabi. Of course Hanabi noticed it but ignored it for the moment as she continued to rub his shoulders. Meanwhile Naruto was trying to calm down, but for some reason Hanabi's back rub was turning him on more than it should. He could feel his grow harder and imagined not Hinata's but Hanabi's delicate little hands wrapping around his shaft and jerking him off. He moaned deeply as Hanabi's hands began to take care of those deep aches and pains. Hanabi smirked as she noticed the rather sizable tent Naruto was sport, while he himself either didn't notice it or didn't care at this point. Seeing that Naruto was under the spell of the aphrodisiac she'd injected him with, Hanabi leaned in and began to kiss and nibble along his neck. That was enough to yank Naruto back into reality and he immediately shot to his feet, but instead of leaving he tried to calm himself down, not knowing if he wanted to yell at Hanabi or tear her clothes off. You promised. Do you want me to stop? Hanabi said coyly as she pressed herself against his back and wrapped her arms around him. Then stop me. Her hands crept down his chest lower and lower, then pushed me away, until they rested on his crotch. She rubbed him through his pants, feeling his strain against its confines. Push me away and I'll stop. Naruto moaned as Hanabi pulled his out and started to stroke it. Naruto knew that he should stop her, but everything she was doing with her hands felt so damn good. Seeing that Naruto wasn't planning on going anywhere, Hanabi came around and pushed him back into his chair. It alright Naruto-kun, Hanabi said as she removed her robe revealing the lacy white lingerie she'd worn for this meeting. Just sit back and I'll take care of you. Kneeling between his legs, Hanabi took hold of Naruto's big friend and gave it a little kiss on the head. I missed you. She giggled when his twitched in response, a bit of precum dribbling out the tip. Gather some saliva in her mouth. Hanabi let it spill from her mouth onto his and started to please him. As his became slick with precum and her spit, Naruto moaned, "Oh." The sensation's really starting to hit him. Then she began to play with his balls, licking them in with her mouth. As this went, she could feel her own arousal and hunger starting to build, her hardening and her free hand giving her a nice rub, hoping to relieve some of the ache. Naruto panted as he could feel his release nearing, and it didn't escape her notice either as he began to jerk his hips up. Deciding to tease him, Hanabi stopped her ministrations, causing Naruto groan and jerk his hips, hoping to reach his release. And she enjoyed it, just like their first time together, with his body begging her for release. "Do you want this, Naruto-kun?" Hanabi deviously asked, a sinful look in her eyes as she gave his a long slow lick, her hot breath washing over the tip. "You can have it, just say you want it." Naruto was too far gone to care about anything other than having Hanabi's mouth wrapped around his. "I want it," and Hanabi gave it. She gave it well. A guttural moan slipped from Naruto, and it couldn't have excited Hanabi more. Hanabi made sure that he looked deep into her eyes as she slowly took him all the down to the base, her tongue wiggling against his, and then just as slowly she pulled back until only his head was in her mouth. She licked and teased his head while her hand stroked his. She repeated this over and over again. "That feels good. Go deeper. Keep doing that. Goddamn, don't stop. Don't stop." Naruto could feel himself about to climax. "Shit, Hanabi, I'm about to come." Naruto warned, but this only made Hanabi speed up. Realizing what Hanabi wanted, Naruto just let himself go to the pleasure until it became too much. "Ooh." Hanabi felt his thigh tighten as he thrust into her mouth, hips twitching as his cum spilled into her mouth. Once Naruto was spent, Hanabi pulled him out of her mouth with a wet pop, and Naruto could only stare as Hanabi's tongue swirled in her mouth and then she swallowed. "You're lucky it's tasty," Hanabi said as she sat on his desk and spread her legs wide, showing him how excited she was. Understanding that Hanabi wanted him to return the favor, Naruto pulled her soaked panties down, kneeled in front of Hanabi, and began to kiss and lick her thighs to get her worked up. Hanabi whined as he teased her, giving it a little lick and rub here and there but never focusing on it too long. "Naruto, please." Naruto smirked as he dug in with gusto, making Hanabi's legs twitch and clamp around his head. "Yes, like that." Hanabi leaned back on her elbows as Naruto's tongue began to work her over. It was better than it had been last time, the heat building in her loins driving her wild, and then he decided to give Satan's doorbell a little ring and Hanabi wailed, "Oh Kami, don't stop, keep going." And Naruto didn't. Deciding to try something, Naruto lubed his fingers with her juices and then slid them inside her and curled his fingers up in come-hither motion. That definitely got a reaction out of Hanabi as she moaned even louder, her head lolling back. His name spilled from her lips like a mantra. "Naruto, Naruto, Naruto, Naruto," over and over again as the pleasure kept shooting through her like she was a live wire. Hanabi thought were a muddled mess, and all she could focus on was Naruto and the heat and pleasure pulling her further and further to the edge, and then Naruto remembered to give her a little love too. "Oh fuck Naruto, ooh." Naruto held her firmly as her body began thrash wildly around until she lay on the desk a moaning, giggling sweaty mess of a happy girl. Naruto leaned over her body, holding her close, kissing her neck, and rubbing his hands up and down her body gently as his hard rubbed against her thigh. While Hanabi was slowly being pulled back from the floating nothingness Naruto had taken her to. When she was finally back, Hanabi, noticing his little problem, reached down and guided him to her, waiting. "Don't worry Naruto-kun, we've got all night." "I'm scum." That was the only explanation Naruto could come up with as he found himself under the soft and warm body of Hinata's sister. The muddled memories of last night flowed through his head, trying to figure out what possessed him to sleep with Hanabi. Why? Why indeed? Naruto stared down into Hanabi's soulful white eyes. "I thought you didn't want this. If I recall, you came onto to me. And if I recall, you didn't push me away," Hanabi said, smirking as he looked away. "And what that tells me is that you feel something for me." Naruto sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Hanabi, I'm sorry. First I hurt you, sister, and now I'm hurting you." "Naruto, you're not." Naruto shushed her with a gentle finger. I used to look at a girl the way you're looking at me now, Naruto said, brushing hair from her eyes. I know you're hurting. I forget how good you are with emotions, Hanabi smiled sadly looking away from him. But I don't care, I just want to be here, with you. Hanabi. I know, Hanabi interrupted, I know who has a place in your heart, but can you honestly say that I'm not there too? Number. Naruto replied softly, caressing her back gently. Not after this. Naruto. Hanabi captured his lips with a tender kiss, taking his breath away with the force of her feelings. You have no idea how happy that makes me. But I can't hurt Hinata like this. Then don't, Hanabi said as she rose off of him, don't tell her. Go home and make up with her. But what about you? I'm a big girl, Hanabi answered. And I knew what I was getting into when I followed my heart. I'll be there for you as a friend, as family, as a lover, or however you need me. I'll be there. She finished putting on her clothes and headed for the door. And I don't care about being the other woman, just don't ignore my feelings. Naruto watched silently as she left, wondering how to handle his heart being pulled in two directions. Outside the office, Hanabi hummed as she walked down the hallway. She was floating on air, realizing that everything was coming together. In the end, I don't care if I'm the other woman because I'll be the one you love the most, Naruto-kun. XXXXXXX. Naruto knocked on the door to the chief of staff's office, ignoring the whispers of the nurses and the looks patients were giving him. He'd washed and changed into an orange shirt and a pair of black pants. Come in. Stepping into the office, Naruto took a seat and waited for the chief to put down the files in her hand. The chief, however, seemed to find the files more interesting than him. Hinata-chan. Naruto called softly, I scheduled an appointment just like you wanted. No you didn't, Hinata replied, pointing to file in her hand. I'm supposed to be meeting this young woman, Yamaguchi Kaide-san, about the hospital's accounts. Okay, I scared some people for this appointment, but it's the effort, right? Hinata shook her head, chuckling at his antics. I suppose it is, I'm sorry. Naruto cut her off her apology. No, I'm the one that's sorry. He ran a tired hand through his hair, thinking about what he wanted to say. You were right, I do chose the village over you. Naru. Let me finish, Hinata-chan. I can't promise that I won't ever choose the village over you, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't make the effort, Naruto finished, grasping her hands tightly. Please forgive me if I hurt you again in the future. Naruto-kun, Hinata said sweetly and gave him a gentle kiss. I'll always forgive you. Naruto was so happy to hear that he rounded the table and lifted Hinata onto her desk. Eep. Naruto-kun. Naruto pressed his lips against her gently, holding her close. I love you, you know that, right? Of course I do, Hinata replied with just as much love before crushing her lips against his. While they toyed and teased each other, Hinata's hands unbuttoned his pants and pulled his hardening out to play. Hinata-chan. Shush. Hinata hiked her skirt up as she stroked his. We have to make this quick. Catching on, Naruto's hand dove between her legs, rubbing against Hinata's slit, forcing a sharp gasp out of her. The couple moaned as their tongues danced sensually against one another, the feeling of skin on warm skin sending shivers up and down their bodies. Their grunts and moan could be heard outside the room as they soon lost themselves in one another. Finally worked up enough, Hinata wrapped her ankles around Naruto's waist and pulled him close. Naruto grinded against her as Hinata nibbled his ear before whispering lustily into his ear, Naruto-kun, stop humping my tight like a horny dog. And that's what he did. Hinata cried out as Naruto filled her, relishing in the feeling of his pounding he tight little snatch. Oh yes, Naruto-kun. Outside the room a group of staff blushed and giggled as they heard the boss and her hubby going at it like horny teenagers. You feel so good inside me, please baby play with my tits. Naruto pushed her flat on her back and popped open Hinata's blouse, pulled up her bra, and groped her beautiful. Hinata loved the way his tongue swirled around her, the feel of his warm breath, and when he couldn't hold back anymore he gently on her. She loved that one the most, The sensation made her whimper and the intimacy made her heart flutter. Yes, on them all you want, honey. Oh, I'm gonna come, Hinata. Yes, yes, fill me up, I want it so bad, baby. Oh shit. Naruto-kun. Naruto grunted as he thrust wildly into Hinata, filling her full of his spunk. Hinata cried out as she came with him, enjoying the feeling of his love inside her. It feels so good. The couple lay there panting and holding one another tenderly. Remembering where they were, Naruto got of his wife and pulled his pants back, while Hinata fixed her skirt and bra but found some buttons of her blouse torn off. Naruto laughed sheepishly, noticing his wife's glare. Sorry honey, I got carried away. Naruto-kun, this was my favorite, Hinata whined. Naruto flashed her his baby blues, silently asking for forgiveness. Fine, but you owe me, mister. Hinata pouted, but that was wiped off when pulled her close and gave her a loving kiss. I'll make it up to you tonight, Hinata-chan, Naruto said before taking his leave. It's a promise, he called back. Hinata sighed happily, glad to see that things would be taking a turn for the better, and then she realized she needed a shower. She blushed, realizing that they hadn't exactly been quiet and now had to face her subordinates. She grabbed a coat and closed it tight, hiding her torn short. She ignored the blushes, giggles, and whispers of her staff as she made for the showers. I never knew Hinata-sama could be so bold. Lord Hokage is as energetic as they say. It's the sweet and quiet ones. Naruto-kun, you dummy. Coming back to the present, Naruto wondered how he found himself in this pleasant situation. Most people who knew Naruto Uzumaki thought he was a good luck charm. He just seemed to be born with an ungodly amount of the stuff. Most casinos had banned him from their places of business when rumor of his winning streaks spread around. He never considered it odd himself, not up until now, because when he looked down he saw both Hyuga princesses in his bed. He smiled down at them, glad this whole business with Hanabi was over. Cheating on Hinata was killing him. Then he smiled wider when he remembered how understanding his lovely wife was. A few lecherous chuckles escaped from his mouth as he recalled the other half of that night. Speaking of perverse, he could feel his lust beginning to stir. Grinning, he began to run his hands down Hinata's body. Hinata moaned as she grabbed his hands. Not right now, Naruto-kun. Come on, Hinata-chan, for me. I want to, but I'm too tired, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, making herself comfortable and going back to sleep. Deciding he wasn't getting anywhere, he turned to Hanabi. How about you, firecracker? The girl in question kissed his cheek, then turned around. Sorry, Naruto-kun, I'm worn out. Naruto huffed in disappointment and decided to get up and ready for work. Showering, dressing, and kissing both of his lovers on the cheek, he promised to have lunch with them. Both girls remained in bed, backs to each other, feeling awkward after last night's events. Taking a calming breath, Hinata decided to start the conversation. How long has this been going on? When he came to talk to me about your seal, I made this deal with him, Hanabi said, turning to her sister. Ever since then I have been enjoying his company. Hinata resisted the urge to hit her sister as she turned to face her. Why did you do this? I told you, Hanabi said, getting nose to nose with her sister. I love him and I want him. Then she smiled. But now that the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, I won't be sneaking around anymore. No, you won't, Hinata said, sitting up, because you won't be seeing my husband anymore. Hanabi scoffed at her sister's words. You don't honestly think that he and I will stop seeing each other, after all that happened last night? She stretched, enjoying the pleasurable soreness from her activities with Naruto. I don't care, Naruto-kun is mine and mine alone. I have forgiven him because I know he was doing this out of love for me, Hinata told her sister, getting out of bed, not minding Hanabi's eyes. So please don't come near my husband again. Hanabi blushed as she saw her sister body, remembering what they had done. You think after 2 years I'm just going to give him up? Come, sister, you know me better than that. Besides, he claimed me just as he did you. She smirked at her sister's face. He cares for me just as he does you. Hinata glared at her sister. No, he doesn't. He only did what he did because of your deal. You don't think all we did was have? Hanabi smiled at her sister. XXXXXXX. Hello Hokage-sama, it's good to finally meet you. A cheerful-looking stocking man clasped Naruto with a beefy hand. It's good to meet you as well Hoshi-san, Naruto replied with a politician's fake cheerfulness. And this must be you lovely wife Hinata Hyuga, Hoshi said turning to the beautiful girl next to Naruto. No, I am his sister-in-law Hanabi Hyuga, Hanabi said offering her hand to the portly man. My sister is currently away on business. Ah Hyuga-sama, a pleasure to make you acquaintance as well, Hoshi replied placing a kiss on her hand. The three of them traded talk about the political climate of the village and deals going on in the countryside. Naruto and Hanabi kept pleasant smiles on their faces during the entire exchange. Naruto sighed as Hoshi walked away to join a group of merchants discussing the current tariffs of Kumo. Thanks for accompanying me, these parties are always the worst. It's fine, I'm used to them, Hanabi said wrapping herself around Naruto's arm, besides it's nice to be out with you. I think that hotel you booked use is going to be nice too, Naruto whispered into her ear. XXXXXXX. And that's why I had sent you away from the village on business, Hanabi explained sitting across from Hinata. The trips out of the village, discussing clan matters, meeting my brother-in-law for lunch was a spending time together, and you know how he is, show him you love him and he can't help but think of you in the same way. Hinata head sunk. She knew her sister would not let go of her husband. How did this even happen? After he saved us from pain, I developed a small attraction, a crush. Hanabi smiled as she recalled that day. Those feelings only grew as I served in his squad during the war. She glared at her sister. But then, he took notice of your feelings and I knew the moment I saw you two together it would stay that way. Hanabi's face soured as if the thought left a bad taste in her mouth. Then he proposed to you and I knew that was my chance. I knew he would do anything for you, so I used it to my advantage. Hinata was shocked by her sister's confession. She had not thought Hanabi above using her husband as a toy, but this confession, Hinata sighed. Fine, if Naruto-kun wants it this way then I won't object. Hanabi was taken aback by her sister's words. Just like that, I thought you loved him so much that you wanted him all to yourself. It's because I love him, Hinata said. I am his wife and I will stand by my love no matter what. Hanabi smiled. You really do love him, don't you? Of course I do. XXXXXXX. Naruto growled as he finished another stack of paperwork. Still frustrated from the morning and not even for the 50th time cursing the fox for making him like this. Looking to his clock he saw was still 2 hours before lunch. Arg, I can't take this. I need to blow off some steam. Keiji, he called to his assistant. I'm going to go spar, I'll be back. Hold my meetings. Yes sir. Naruto headed out the door and signaled his guards to follow him. The Anbu were silently crying as they knew what a spar with the boss meant. Well, spar wasn't exactly the right word for the situation, more like they fight their hardest to live while they get the crap kicked out of them by their leader. 2 hours later. Come on, is that the best you guys have? Naruto barked out as he slammed one of his Anbu into the ground, then turned to block a fire dragon, Doden, rising earth wall. The earth wall defended Naruto against the fire just you. And when it ended he had finished another set of hand seals, Doden, violent earth movement. Naruto slammed his palm into the earth wall causing chunks of earth to rocket at the Anbu. Not finished yet, Naruto went through another hand seals rapidly, futon, gale palm. The wind just sped up the rocks making it impossible for the Anbu to dodge, and as the technique ended it showed that the ninja had been knocked unconscious. Naruto huffed as he looked around to see his 4 guards all laid out. One slammed into a tree, another into the ground, and the third was still twitching from the effect of a lighting technique. He sighed and made clones to pick them up and take them to the hospital. At least it worked off some stress. He looked to the sun and noticed that it was noon already, so he picked up his Hokage robes and hat then headed to his office. People smiled and waved to them as he passed through his village. Nearing the tower he saw both Hinata and Hanabi waiting for him. Hanabi was dressed in a white robe, a black sash holding it closed, the Hyuga flame symbol proudly displayed on her back. Next to her, Hinata was in a short-sleeved lavender jacket and black pants. Naruto waved to them, happy to see them. Sorry if I kept you waiting, let's go get something to eat, I'm starving. The girls smiled and followed after him. As they walked to the restaurant, they talked and joked with one another. To everyone it was simply the Hokage and his wife enjoying a day with the family. If only they knew what had really gone on between the three. They arrived at the restaurant and were greeted. Good afternoon, Hokage-sama, Lady Hinata, Hanabi-sama, please let me show you to a table. Thanks, Naruto said, following the waiter to his table. They all took seats at their table, Naruto looking to both Hyuga sisters, wondering if they had discussed the events that had transpired. So what have the two of you been up to today? Hanabi-chan and I were just catching up. It has been a while since we last spoke, Hinata said, looking at her menu. Oh really, what about? Just about everything that has happened in the past few years, Naruto-kun. Hinata smiled and placed a hand on his, and what might be happening in the future. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he looked between the two of them. What is going to happen? Don't worry about that, Hokage-sama. For now let's enjoy this meal. I do love spending time with my sister and her husband, Hanabi said, a sultry smile playing on her lips. I find it to be a very pleasurable experience. And so the lovers enjoyed their meal, trading innuendos and making one another blush. They finished their meals and left, Naruto leading the way home, needing to discuss what was to be done now. Entering their home, Naruto was grabbed by both of the girls who sat him on the couch. Naruto looked at both of them, confused by their behavior. What's going on, girls? We have to talk about this, about us, and this arrangement. What about it? I want to know if you plan to keep seeing Hanabi. Naruto looked between both girls and just shook his head. I already told the both of you. He wrapped an arm around each girl and pulled them to him. I love you both, so yeah, I'm going to keep seeing Hanabi. Hinata-chan, I hope you're okay with this because I can't just let her go. Hinata smiled and kissed her husband. It is fine with me, Naruto-kun, as long as you are happy. Then she hugged her sister, welcoming her to their family. Hanabi smiled, finally getting what she wanted this whole time. Then she giggled. My, Hokage-sama, what will the village think of you sleeping with the Hyuga princesses? They'll be fine. You two, however, aren't leaving this house for a while. Naruto had a lecherous smile on his face as hoisted both girls onto his shoulders. We have to celebrate and I have just the thing in mind. XXXXXXX. A few hours and more than few romps in the bed later, the office eventually sent a few people to look for their errant Hokage. A silver-haired ninja stood in front of his leader's home, knocking on the door. Kakashi looked a bit exasperated, as it wasn't unusual for Naruto to run off in the middle of the day. A perverted giggle left his mouth as he thought of why his student was always running off. He stopped as a very annoyed-looking Naruto answered the door. What is it, Kakashi-sensei? I'm in the middle of something. I bet. Kakashi thought to himself. Sorry to interrupt, but are you planning on coming back to the office? Naruto-kun, come back to bed, a voice said, making Kakashi smirk. It was the second that shocked him. Yeah, don't keep us waiting, Hokage-sama. Naruto are there too. Like I said, I'm in the middle of something, Naruto said with a wicked smirk, and your silence is much appreciated. Adding to that, he said, why don't you take Anko out for some dango, send me the bill. Kakashi gave him his infamous eye smile. Of course, Hokage-sama, have good night. Naruto shut the door and headed back to his room to enjoy the company of his two lovers. XXXXXXX. It had been a few months down the line, and so far Naruto's life had been great. It hadn't taken long for news to leak about what he was doing with the Hyuga sisters, and that had the whole village talking. Most of his male friends had been patting his back and praising him. Even Shino had complimented him. Neji, however, had not been so happy. Naruto had spent the whole day avoiding deadly chakra strikes. After Neji had finally gotten it out of his system, Naruto explained to him the situation, and while he was far from happy with it, he accepted it. The ninja council had not been so kind. Hanabi had been forced to step down from her seat and had to choose a new clan member to take her place. She had, of course, chosen Neji, who had taken it as a surprise and honor, to be the first branch member to be chosen as the new clan head. After that, everything had gone smoothly except for the occasional rumor or two in and out of the village about him and his new family. Hearing his door open, Naruto looked up and smiled at see his lover's smiling faces. "Hey girls, did you need for me something?" "Yes, we just came to tell you the news." "Oh, did something happen?" Their smiles seemed to get happier if that was possible. Well, Naruto-kun, at this part they seemed to get a bit nervous. Well, he stood up, moving in front of his desk. They looked to each other and nodded. "We're pregnant." They waited for Naruto's reaction, but he seemed to keep the same face, not showing any emotion, worried they were about to move to his side until he fell forward. They flipped him over and saw what had happened. He had fainted. XXXXXXX. Omake. This omake was spawned by an idea of the most avid reviewer of this story, Aniox27. Naruto sat in his office reading over some papers, taking care of the day-to-day village bureaucracy. As he finished signing a document, Hiyashi barged into his office. "Hokage-sama, we have something to discuss." "Hiyashi, what's with the mustache?" Naruto couldn't help but stare at the giant old-timey mustache on Hiyashi's face. "Don't play stupid, I know that stole my daughter's heart," Hiyashi shouted, "but she will still marry the rich rancher Kato." "Who's Kato? Of course you wouldn't acknowledge me, Naruto." Naruto stared at the young man, who had his own mustache, point an accusing finger at him. "But Hinata is mine and you will never see her again." "Now wait a goddamn. Naruto-kun," in barged Hinata, crying her eyes out and flinging herself in Naruto's arms. "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" Naruto had no idea what the hell was going on. "We can't be together." Hinata turning away from Naruto, dramatically turning away from Naruto, "because I am carrying Kato's child." "What?" Now Naruto was pissed, but before he could start beating anyone, Hinata handed him a sonogram picture. "This is the proof." Naruto stared at the blurry picture and saw a great big mustache on the fetus. "What the? He. Naruto turned to see Hanabi standing outside the window, rubbing her hands together evilly, with her own mustache. "My plan has worked." Naruto shot up in bed. "Mustache. Naruto-kun, go back to bed," Hanabi said, and Hinata mumbled an agreement. Naruto looked around the darkened bedroom, grateful to see Kato wasn't there. Checking Hanabi's face to make sure she didn't have a mustache, he sighed in relief when he didn't see one. "Man, I have to stop putting so much hot sauce in my ramen before I go to bed."